When people ask what really happened to Dana Perino, they usually say it in a lowered voice, like there's some hidden scandal or dramatic downfall that everyone somehow missed. But the truth is far more interesting than a single shocking headline. Dana Perino's story isn't about disappearing, melting down, or being pushed out. It's about survival inside one of the most intense political and media environments in the world, about reinvention, resilience, and the quiet cost of living your life in front of millions of eyes. To understand what really happened to Dana Perino, you have to go all the way back to where her story began, long before cable news lights and White House podiums. She didn't grow up groomed for fame. She was raised in Colorado and Wyoming, places where people value hard work over attention and results over noise. Politics wasn't glamorous where she came from. It was practical. It was about policy, consequences, and showing up prepared. That mindset would later become both her greatest strength and one of her biggest challenges. Dana didn't burst into Washington as a celebrity. She worked her way up slowly, studying communications and public affairs, learning how power actually works behind closed doors. By the time she landed roles in Republican leadership circles, she wasn't chasing cameras. She was chasing competence. That's important, because when she eventually stepped onto the national stage, she wasn't playing a character. She was being exactly who she'd always been. Everything changed in 2007, when Dana Perino became White House press secretary under President George W. Bush. She made history. She was only the second woman ever to hold the role. But history doesn't prepare you for the pressure. The Bush administration was in its most turbulent period, with the Iraq War dominating headlines, its public approval sinking, and reporters arriving at every briefing sharpened and ready for blood. This was not a victory lap presidency. It was a daily battle. For Dana, the job wasn't just about answering questions. It was about standing in the middle of a political hurricane and staying composed while the entire country watched. Every word mattered. Every pause was analyzed. Every facial expression was clipped, replayed, and criticized. And unlike many political figures, she didn't respond with bombast or aggression. She responded with calm. That calm became her signature, but it also made her a target. Critics called her too soft. Supporters praised her professionalism. Behind the scenes, the stress was relentless. White House press secretaries age and dog. Years, and Dana was no exception. Long nights, constant briefings, crisis management, and the weight of representing an administration under fire took a real toll. She later admitted that the pressure affected her health, her sleep, and her sense of self. And then there was the moment that reminded her just how vulnerable public figures can be. In 2007, while traveling in London, Dana Perino was caught in a protest crowd and was struck during a confrontation. The incident didn't dominate headlines for long, but it left an impact. It was a physical reminder that politics isn't just ideological. It can be dangerous. It can be personal. And it doesn't always stay behind microphones and press passes. When the Bush administration ended in 2009, many people expected Dana Perino to fade quietly into the background. After all, former press secretaries often disappear into consulting firms or private advisory roles. But that's not what happened. Instead, Dana stepped into a new arena, one that would test her in completely different ways. Cable news, joining Fox News, was not a simple transition. Political communications and television commentary may look similar on the surface, but they are fundamentally different beasts. In the White House, your job is to protect the administration. On TV, your job is to perform, to react instantly, to hold attention, and to do it all in an environment designed to reward conflict. Dana didn't fit the stereotype of cable news outrage. She wasn't loud. She wasn't theatrical. She didn't thrive on viral arguments. And yet, slowly, she carved out a space for herself. Shows like The Five introduced her to a much wider audience, one that saw her not as a press secretary, but as a steady voice in an increasingly chaotic media landscape. Still, Viewers began to notice something. Dana Perino wasn't changing with the times the way others were. As cable news became louder, faster, and more polarized, Dana stayed measured. She didn't chase extremes. And in a media world that rewards heat over light, that choice came with consequences. Some fans accused her of being out of touch. Critics on the left dismissed her as a partisan holdover. Others on the right felt she wasn't aggressive enough. This is where the rumors started. People began asking why she wasn't everywhere anymore. Why she seemed quieter? Why she wasn't dominating headlines like some of her colleagues? Online speculation grew, fueled by the modern obsession with what really happened narratives. Had she been sidelined? Was she pushed out? Did she disagree with the network's direction? The truth is less dramatic, but more human. Dana Perino was evolving, behind the scenes. She was dealing with personal loss, including the death of her beloved dog Jasper, who had become a surprising symbol of warmth and relatability in her public life. That loss hit her harder than many expected, and she spoke openly about grief, vulnerability, and the importance of mental health. For a woman long known for composure, those moments of openness revealed depth that television rarely makes room for. Professionally, she began shifting her focus. She leaned into mentoring, writing, and hosting in ways that aligned more closely with who she actually was, not who the media wanted her to be. Her show, America's Newsroom, allowed her to engage with news without constant confrontation. Her books focused on life lessons, leadership, and resilience rather than partisan warfare. And here's the part that often gets overlooked. Dana Perino didn't fall off. She stepped back on purpose. In an era where relevance is measured by volume and outrage, choosing restraint can look like disappearance. But Dana was never trying to be the loudest voice in the room. She was trying to be a credible one. That decision may not generate viral clips, but it builds longevity. Another layer to this story is the changing role of women in political media. Dana entered a system that often punished women for traits it praised in men. Calm became boring. Thoughtfulness became weak. And refusing to perform anger was seen as a flaw rather than a strength. Over time, that environment wears on you, so when people ask what really happened to Dana Perino, the answer is that she survived something many don't. She survived Washington at its most brutal. She survived the transition from politics to television. She survived public scrutiny, private loss, and an industry that constantly demands more while offering less. And instead of burning out spectacularly, she chose sustainability today. Dana Perino remains active, influential, and respected, even if she's not screaming for attention. She continues to shape conversations, mentor younger voices, and appear in spaces where reason still matters. Her career didn't implode. It matured. And maybe that's why her story feels confusing in a culture obsessed with collapse. There's no scandal to uncover, no shocking downfall to expose. What really happened to Dana Perino is something far rarer in modern celebrity culture. She learned when to step forward, when to step back, and how to define success on her own terms in a world that rewards noise. Dana Perino chose steadiness, and that may be the most unexpected plot twist of all. When people type the words, "What really happened to Dana Perino?" into a search bar, they're usually expecting a scandal, a secret firing, a dramatic fall from grace. It's an explosive revelation that explains why she's not dominating headlines the way louder personalities do. But Dana Perino's story doesn't follow the usual Hollywood door Washington script. There's no single moment where everything collapsed. Instead, what happened to Dana Perino is a slow, deeply human story about pressure, evolution, and choosing peace over perpetual outrage to really understand it. You have to understand the environment she stepped into and the kind of person she was long before America knew her name. Dana Perino did not come from privilege, political dynasties, or media royalty. She was raised in the American West, where life is practical and people are judged by what they do, not how loudly they speak. That background shaped her entire approach to life. She wasn't raised to seek attention. She was raised to earn respect. And in modern media culture, that difference matters more than people realize. When she entered Washington, D.C., she wasn't dazzled by power. She was prepared for it. She worked behind the scenes, mastering policy language, learning how messaging shapes public perception, and understanding how quickly a single sentence can change the direction of a national conversation. These weren't glamorous jobs. They were demanding, often thankless roles that required discipline and precision. So, when Dana Perino was named White House press secretary in 2007, it wasn't luck. It was the result of years of quiet competence. But timing is everything. She stepped into the role during one of the most difficult periods of the George W. Bush presidency. The Iraq War dominated public discourse. Trust in government was eroding. The press room was hostile, impatient, and often openly adversarial. This wasn't a moment where charm alone could carry you through. It was a test of endurance. Every single day. Dana walked into that briefing room knowing she would face aggressive questioning, criticism from all sides, and the impossible task of explaining complex global decisions in sound bites. She had to defend policies she didn't create, manage crises she didn't cause, and do it all while being judged not just on her answers, but on her tone, her appearance, and her demeanor. And unlike many who came before or after her, Dana didn't fight fire with fire. She stayed calm. That calmness became her defining trait. But it also became a double-edged sword. Supporters saw professionalism and grace. Critics saw vulnerability. In politics, especially during moments of national anger, calm can be mistaken for weakness. And the pressure never stopped. Behind the scenes, the job was exhausting. Long hours, constant travel, endless preparation, and the knowledge that one mistake could define her career. She later spoke about how the stress affected her physically and emotionally. Sleep became rare. Anxiety became normal. The human cost of public service was very real. Then came a moment that shocked even those close to her. During a trip to London, Dana Perino was caught in a protest situation and was physically struck. The incident didn't dominate the news cycle for long, but it changed something internally. It was a stark reminder that political roles don't come with invisible shields. That anger directed at institutions often lands on individuals. When the Bush administration ended, Dana left the White House with her reputation intact, but her energy drained. Many assumed she would disappear into private consulting or stay quietly behind the scenes. Instead, she entered another unforgiving world. Television news. Cable news is a different kind of battlefield. On TV, speed matters more than nuance. Emotion often matters more than accuracy. Conflict drives ratings. And personalities who thrive are often the ones willing to escalate, provoke, and dominate conversations. Dana Perino was stepping into a space that rewarded traits opposite to her own. Still, she adapted. Joining Fox News gave her a platform, but it also introduced new pressures. Shows like The Five brought her into living rooms across America. Viewers saw her intelligence, her measured tone, and her ability to listen rather than shout. She became a stabilizing presence on a panel often filled with tension. But as years passed, the media landscape changed even more dramatically. Outrage became currency. Subtlety became rare. Viewers gravitated toward extremes. And once again, Dana Perino found herself slightly out of sync with the direction of the industry. She wasn't interested in becoming a caricature of anger. She wasn't chasing viral moments. And that choice quietly reshaped her visibility. This is when whispers began. Why isn't Dana on screen as much? Why does she seem quieter? Did something happen behind the scenes? Speculation filled the gaps, as it always does. But the reality was far less sinister. Dana Perino choosing balance. She began focusing on projects that aligned with her values. Hosting America's Newsroom allowed her to engage with news in a more thoughtful way. Writing books allowed her to speak without interruption, to explore leadership, faith, resilience, and the lessons learned from years inside high pressure environments. Her personal life also became more visible in unexpected ways. Her bond with her dog Jasper resonated deeply with audiences. Jasper wasn't just a pet. He became a symbol of comfort, normalcy, and emotional grounding in a world that rarely slows down. When Jasper passed away, Dana spoke openly about grief. That vulnerability surprised people who were used to seeing her composed and controlled. But it also revealed something important. Dana Perino is no longer interested in pretending she was unaffected by life. She talked about loss. She talked about mental health. She talked about the emotional toll of public life. And for some viewers, that honesty mattered more than political arguments ever could. Another part of her story that often goes unmentioned is how difficult it is for women in political media to age, evolve, and step back without being labeled irrelevant. Men are often praised for wisdom as they grow quieter. Women are often questioned. Dana faced that double standard head-on. She wasn't pushed out. She wasn't silenced. She wasn't defeated. She recalibrated. And that's the part of the story that doesn't fit neatly into clickbait culture. No dramatic ending, no scandalous revelation. Just a woman who recognized her limits, respected her well-being, and refused to sacrifice herself for constant attention today. Dana Perino remains respected in political and media circles. She mentors younger professionals, contributes thoughtfully to public conversations, and appears when she has something meaningful to say. Her influence didn't disappear. It transformed. So what really happened to Dana Perino? She endured the pressure cooker of Washington. She navigated the chaos of cable news. She experienced loss, stress, and scrutiny. And instead of burning out publicly, she chose a quieter, more intentional path. In a culture obsessed with collapse, Dana Perino's story is about something far less sensational but far more rare: longevity, stability, and the courage to step back when the world demands you step forward at any cost. Sometimes, the most powerful decision a public figure can make is knowing when enough is enough, and that may be the real story people weren't expecting. Disclaimer: the content in this video is based on publicly available information, media sources, and opinions. It is created for entertainment and educational purposes only. We do not claim or guarantee that every detail is 100% accurate.